shopkeeper buys a certain number of books for rupees 960. If the cost per book was rupees 8 less, the number of books that could be bought for rupees 960 would be 4 more. Taking the original cost of each book to be rupees X, write an equation in X and solve it. Alright. Now over here they've already told us what value to be considered as a variable X. So let's start with that. So original cost per book is equal to rupees X, right? Next, now, if you read the question carefully, it tells us that total spent was 960 rupees, and if the cost per book was 8 rupees less, the number of books bought would be 4 more. Okay, so now we'll try to frame the equation around the number of books being bought, right? Now the original cost per book is rupees X. Number of books, so original number of books bought, right? Original number of books bought would be bought for rupees 960, right? For rupees 960, right? Understand, total expenditure is 960, per book cost is X, so the total number of books that will be bought would be 960 divided by X, right? Okay, now that is based on the original condition. Now, as per the new situation, if the cost per book was rupees 8 less, right? So the new original cost of the book is rupees X, new cost of the book, new cost per book will be rupees 8. It is 8 less from the original, so 8 less means X minus 8 rupees, right? Okay, now the total expenditure isn't changing. We are still spending a rupees 960, so new number of books that can be purchased, right? So new number of books bought for rupees 960, right? The total amount spent divided by the cost per book, so it will be 960, 960 divided by X minus 8. That's that X in our brown color, right? So X minus 8. Okay, now they've given us a relation between the original number of books bought and the new number of books bought, and that is that the number of books that could have been bought for rupees 960 would be 4 more, correct? So let's use that information. How do I use that information, right? So the new number of books bought, what that means is that the new number of books bought is 4 more than the original number of books, right? Hope that makes sense. That is what they've told us here, that if we are paying 8 rupees less per book, the number of books that could be bought would be 4 more, and which makes sense. If the price per article is reduced, we would get more articles, right? So we need to translate that statement into an equation. So the new number of books that are bought is 960 upon X minus 8. 960 upon X minus 8, that is equal to 4 more, right? If I say it is 4 more, that means it is plus 4. Plus 4 to which value though? The original number of books, and the original number of books is 960 upon X, right? So this would be the equation which I would have to simplify into a quadratic, and then I will be able to split the middle term and solve it to get the value of X, right? So let's do just that. Let's take the X terms together on one side of the equation. So therefore I can say 960 upon X minus 8 minus 960 upon X is equal to 4. I took this term to the other side. Now the reason why I did that is because both are 960 and are fractions. So to simplify fractions, remember we just cross multiply, take the LCM that way. So therefore 960 into X minus 960 into X minus 8 in a bracket, entire thing divided by, and this is to be put in a bracket, divided by the multiplication of these two in the denominator here. So let's multiply that directly. X into x will give me x square. X into minus 8 will give me minus 8x, and all of this is equal to 4. Right. Now, since we don't want terms in the denominator, we would like everything to be in the numerator. We have a good quadratic equation. We'll take this from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. And so what I end up with is 960 into x, so that's 960x, and minus 960 into x, so that's minus 960x. 960 into minus 960 into minus 8, so 8 zeros are 0, 6 are 48, 4 carry, 72, 76, so it will be 7680, but it will be plus 7680 because minus into minus here will give me plus. All of this will be equal to 4 into x square minus 8x, right? So plus 960 minus 960 will get cancelled out. This 4 on the left hand side being multiplied here, if I take it to the right, it will come into division. So I end up with 9680 divided by 4, which will give me 1920 equal to x square minus 8x. So we are getting our equation with a quadratic equation. Let's write it in the standard form. It will be x square minus 8x minus 1920 equal to 0. So this is our quadratic equation in the standard form. X square minus 8x minus 1920 is equal to 0. So we will solve this by splitting the middle term, right? Now the product that would be there, the coefficient of x square, which is 1 into minus 1920. So the product is equal to negative 1920. So I want two numbers, right? Two numbers which when multiplied give me 1920, and when I add them I should get negative 8, and the sum should be negative 8. So this isn't as straightforward as the other sum that we've done so far, right? As you can see, it's a rather large number, 1920. So when I'm dealing with such situations where numbers are too large and it's not easily evident as to what the two factors would be, one way of trying to solve them is by prime factorizing the product, right? So if I have 1920, I'll do that. So I take it by 2, I get 960, divide by 2 again, I get 480, divide by 2 again, I get 240, 2 once more, it's 120, 260, 230, 215, 3, 5, 5, 1, right? So these are the prime factors of 1920. Now I have to group these factors in such a way, right? I have to group these factors in such a way that so obviously the product of those two factors will be 1920 because it's a prime factorization, but I have to group them in such a way that they're that difference, because it's a negative sign here rather, so the difference would give me 8. Okay, so my thought process here would be that 8 is a very small number compared to 1920, so the two factors would be rather close to each other. Okay, and if they're to be close to each other, they'll be close to the square root of 1920, which is again not an easy term to take out. But then think about it, 1920, right? So the square of 40 is 1600, and the square of 50 is 2500. So your answers or your factors have to be somewhere in between 40 and 50. That is like an estimate that you can put, right? So let's try to group our terms in a way such that we get those two factors. So suppose if I consider 2 into 2 is 4, 4 into 2, 8, and let's take 8 into 5, which is 40, right? So 8 into 5 is 40. 2 into 2 is 4, 4 into 2 is 8, 8 into 2 is 16, and 16 into 3 is 48, right? So we'll group these factors in such a way. So one factor is 48 and the other factor is 40. So 48 into 40 will give me 1920, and plus 48, or rather minus 48, plus 40 will give me negative 8. Right, so this is how I can split the middle term if I have two factors which are quite large by themselves, right? Um, so uh, now since I've got my two factors, I can say therefore x square. So minus 8 can be written as minus 48x plus 40x minus 1920 is equal to 0. Right? So now I'll factor this thing out. Between the first two terms, I can see there's an x common, and in the bracket I'll be left with um, x minus 48. Between the third and the fourth term, plus 40 is common, and in the bracket I'll be left with x minus 48. And the product and this entire thing is equal to 0. Therefore now you see there's an x minus 48, x minus 48 is being repeated, same bracket, so x minus 48 is common. And in the other bracket, I'll be left with x plus 40. Right? And all of this is equal to 0. So we are at a point where we can use a zero product rule because both of these values multiplied give me 0. So either the first one is equal to 0, so x minus 48 is equal to 0, or I can say x plus 40, x plus 40 is equal to 0. Rearranging and solving the first equation, I get the value of x as 48, or I can say x is equal to negative 40. All right. What does x represent, you may ask? And x is nothing. Oh, sorry about that. X is nothing but the original cost of the. Just coming from. X is nothing but the original cost of the books, the cost per book. Now, the cost per book, a cost can never be negative, right? So I can say since cost cannot be negative, cannot be negative, x is equal to minus 40 is rejected. Right? So therefore, I get the value, I get my answer. Therefore, x is equal to 48. And I guess that is what they've asked us to find this question. They've asked us to solve in, taking the original cost as x, write an equation in x and solve it. So we have solved the equation and found the value of x to be 48. So that means the original cost per book is rupees 48.